Hello, everyone. I'm Jenna Paone. Welcome to Lit Chick on a Mighty Blaze. Today, I'm so thrilled to welcome Amy Mason Doan to talk about her fabulous new book, Lady Sunshine. Hey, Amy, how are you today?
Hi, Jenna. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. We loved your book here at Lit Chick. And by that, I mean myself and my producer, Julie Gerstenblatt, and everyone on the Mighty Blaze team. Your book is it's so atmospheric. It's really just like a lovely, delicious escape. It's so, so wonderful. Congratulations. And thanks for writing such an incredible book. I'm thrilled.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love that word, delicious.
Yes.
Great word.
Absolutely. I believe our friend Ellen Hildebrand called it a delicious daydream of a book, which I feel like is the best description I've heard. I'm going to give everyone just a little bit of background info about you and about the book, and then we're going to jump into questions. So Amy Mason Doan is the best-selling author of The Summer List, Summer Hours, and her latest release, which we're celebrating today, Lady Sunshine. Amy grew up in Danville, California, and now lives in Portland, Oregon. She's written for the Oregonian, is that?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, the Oregonian, the San Francisco Chronicle, Wired, Forbes, and other publications, and has an MA in journalism from Stanford University and a BA in English from UC Berkeley. Amy's novels are emotional, layered stories about secrets, lifelong friendship, and the escapable tug of the past. As we said, our friend Ellen Hildebrand calls Lady Sunshine a delicious daydream of a book, and Kirkus Reviews says it's a well-written, well-paced novel that unfolds slowly, hinting at the events that broke apart a young woman's life. And Booklist says fans of Crossing California and Daisy Jones and the Sixth will be enamored with the world of Lady Sunshine. Welcome, Amy, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jenna. I appreciate it.
Oh, it was so fun. And this is an extra special interview for me today because I've spent the last decade plus of my life, dozen years of my life as a touring singer-songwriter and musician. And so your book has so much to do with music, which we're going to talk about. It has references to so many of my favorite artists and songwriters from past years. And, you know, it kind of hints at things to come. You know, there's some lovely, like, amalgamations of certain figures that we're going to talk about. But to start, why don't you just tell everyone a little bit more about Lady Sunshine and the inspiration behind it?
Sure. Sounds good. So Lady Sunshine is, in the simplest description, a story about an inheritance. It's about a woman named Jackie who inherits a house. She lives in Boston, your hometown.
Yep.
And she's living this very quiet, safe life as a music teacher. She inherits this house. She gets a FedEx. She tells all her friends she's going to go out to California, that she inherited her aunt's house. It's no big deal. She uses those words a lot. No big deal.
Big deal.
Tells her boyfriend she's just going to go out there and quickly pack up the house for sale and then come home. Yeah. But of course, that's not the truth. It is a big deal. And it's not just any house. It's this place called the Sandcastle. Yeah. That used to be, thank you. It used to be this legendary gathering place where her uncle, who was once a pretty famous folk musician, would host artists, free spirits, musicians, friends for the summer. Jackie had spent one summer there when she was a teen in 1979, and it was a pivotal, life-changing summer for her, and we begin to find out why.
Yep, awesome. And tell us why. I understand this is maybe inspired by some real life events, not necessarily in your life, but sort of some events in the music world. Can you kind of talk about what led you to writing this book?
I wish it was in my real life. I really do.
I know, right?
All my books, there's a little wish fulfillment. So the story, the basic idea for the 1999 part of the story, when Jackie's there and a music producer convinces her to let his group stay on the property to record a tribute album to her uncle, that is based on a real album, a real project.
Cool.
Woody Guthrie's daughter found a treasure of his lyrics that had not been recorded. Yep. And she worked with some contemporary artists, Billy Bragg and Wilco and Natalie Merchant, to create the album Mermaid Avenue. And that's always been a favorite album of mine, even before I knew the story behind it, or that these were someone else's lyrics, that they were Woody Guthrie's lyrics. And I just thought that would make a really rich, interesting story. Mm-hmm. So that part of it combined with this idea of Jackie there as a teen, and these things that happened to her in the adult world with her cousin that she was thrown into this bohemian world. That album is amazing. Everyone should listen to it immediately if you don't know it. Have you heard it? It's gorgeous.
I have. I hadn't actually heard of it before, and I went and I listened to it because of your book, because I went and did a little, I do my research on my authors before my interviews, and it's beautiful. I highly recommend. It's really, really a lovely album. And I was surprised that I hadn't heard of it, but I love those mysteries in the music world, in this kind of contemporary thing. It's such a great concept for a novel. Now, are you yourself a musician? I'm curious, because it's the music in the book is so self-assured. Do you have any experience playing or writing music?
I played the clarinet in 6th grade and then quit. That was terrible. I did used to sing a little in school, but I am not a musician. My husband and my daughter do sing and play instruments, but I'm not. I'm a fan. I love live shows. I'm so excited that live shows are opening up, and I'm buying tickets to just everything I can. I appreciate music. It's a huge part of my life, and I just wanted to do a little love letter to musicians and songwriters, especially.
So what was your process then for getting into that headspace of being, because it is a different machine as a musician who is now working on her first novel and learning how to write a novel. What was it like for you as a novelist to then go and put yourself into the mindset of a songwriter?
Yeah, it was fun, and it was liberating, because every song that's mentioned in the book, I wrote the fictional one. So I have references to real songs. Jackie's a big fan of Blondie and Debbie Harry, and her cousin Willa is more of a folky girl. So I mentioned some favorite artists there. But the fictional songs that come up and that hold a lot of secrets in the book, her uncle's songs and some others, I actually wrote those for myself, for nobody else. Awesome. And that was fun, scary. But, I knew nobody was going to read these, but I wanted to see what it was like to structure a song and how that process goes. And it is very different from writing a 100,000 word novel. For the technical stuff in the book, like the recording in this old studio, this legendary studio, I spoke to someone in your area. I spoke to Susan Rogers at Berklee School of Music.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, she used to
love Berklee. You gotta, if you need anything, you gotta go to Berklee.
The other Berklee, as some of us call it, but the KLEE Berklee, which is amazing. So she's this legend. She worked with, she recorded Purple Rain for Prince, and she's kind of the expert on analog recording. So for the 1999 scenes, I just really wanted to nail that. It's really a story about relationships and friendship and family, but there are people working on an album, and I wanted to get those details right.
Yeah, so I think you did a good job. I actually recorded my first album analog, which is an insane thing that nobody should ever do. There's no reason why in today's world you would do this, but we had a tape machine, and my producer had a tape machine, and we were like, well, let's just do it on tape. But it's somebody who records digitally most of the time, it's a totally different process, but it gives this warm, rich tone. And it does involve a lot more perfection from the musicians and the artists. And it because you can't digitally create that perfection. It's everything now. You can just auto tune, and you can build it in, you can change it, you can do whatever you want. It's an interesting thing, but analog for me is honestly, it's a different experience, but it's really fun. That is it makes me feel like a real musician.
The sound is gorgeous and warm, of course, and then the stakes are so high, so it's scary, but that's such a beautiful part of creating that music, and just hoping that the magic happens at the right time. And I just find it fascinating. So I really wanted to include that passion in the book. My passion is for writing novels, but there's this group of people who really want to create something beautiful and meaningful despite all their flaws and the complications of life and the modern world and the industry. Jackie's uncle is someone who's somewhat faded. The industry has moved on from him. So the only place where he's really still a big deal is in the sandcastle of this property. He's still huge there. And I thought that was an interesting thing to explore too.
Now, before we I want to get back into the novel in just a second, but just before we do, who are some of your favorite musicians, artists, bands? Maybe give us like one or two of your best concerts that you've ever been to. Like, that's always one of my favorites. Like, what's the best
fun. The ultimate concert list. So obviously I love Wilco. That's why the song California Stars always resonated with me. And that was a bit of the inspiration for the book. I really love Sharon Van Etten. And I think the best show I've ever seen was her here in Portland. I've seen her live a few times. She just has the most gorgeous, haunting voice. I don't know if you know her, but beautiful voice that just makes me cry. Like, and so seeing her live is just amazing, visceral experience. I'm seeing Counting Crows.
Yes.
They're touring. They had to tour last year, but they're coming here to a place called Edgefield.
Nice.
And they're actually my daughter's favorite band. I have a 15-year-old. I know. I love it.
Good for her. You're raising her well.
I know. It's so amazing to see your kid discover the music from your era, because I'm kind of a 90s girl, and she's a singer. She actually has a beautiful voice, and she loves Counting Crows. And so, oh gosh, my phone's ringing, and I'm so sorry about that.
You're an in-demand woman. It's Counting Crows calling. They're like,
Counting Crows saying, "Hey, come on." I'm so sorry about that. Like,
no, don't worry. This is life. This is life in 2021, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes we get phone calls while we're doing our online interviews.
But who are my other favorites? So just like Jackie, I love Blondie and Debbie Harry. And so in the book, the girls, the cousins are very different. Jackie is more of a disco girl. And Willa, her cousin, the uncle's daughter, loves folk music. Joan Armatrading and Joni Mitchell. And she's kind of still holding on to the 60s. Yeah. But they get along beautifully and they connect through music, which is, that's what we do, right?
Absolutely. And they're such wonderful characters, both of them. They're both so rich and fully rounded. Talk a little bit about, because this novel, like your other work, it really focuses at the heart of this is this female friendship and this deep female connection between these two cousins, and what a big impact it has on their lives. And there's relationships of all kinds. We've got family relationships, we've got romantic relationships, all of them complex. But really, to me, what sticks out about your writing is this emphasis between female connection. Can you talk a little bit about what draws you to that as a subject to explore?
Yeah, I mean, that is the common thread in all three of my novels. Even when there's a romance between a man and a woman in some of the books, it's the female friendships that are paramount and reconnecting. So the theme is, to me, reconnecting to those intense friendships we had when we were younger. Yeah. Which I think we sometimes lose as life moves on and we have our families and we miss them. So all of my characters, and especially Jackie, just misses what she had with Willa. Yeah. That one magical summer, and which ended quite mysteriously. We don't know what happened to drive them apart, but that longing for the closeness and the freedom and who we are in those friendships as our younger selves. So I think a big theme of Lady Sunshine is kind of reconnecting with who we were when we were younger. And Jackie, again, she's living this very staid, quiet life, but that she wasn't like that when she was 17, not at all. And we can see that, and we're kind of like, what happened, Jackie? Why did you change?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question to explore, and something I think that all of us, do struggle with as we get older. I think it'll be, as our lives evolve and change. I hope my daughter, I have an 8-month-old. I hope she someday thinks I'm cool when I talk about the shows I've done with people. Like, mommy was kind of a rock star for a little while, cool. But not at all. But will she think that's cool? I don't know.
I think so.
And the connection to earlier self, and this book is so filled with nostalgia. Yes. Even though I'm an 80s baby, I grew up in the 80s, but I still feel like it's not all that different. When I had experiences that were similar, not quite the same as I didn't go to my bohemian uncle's, thing, but I went to like cool art camps and things like that gave me that same vibe as your book. Can you talk about specifically, it seems like the decision to set it in 1979 and 1999 was very purposeful. Can you talk a little bit about that choice?
Yes, absolutely. So I was born in the 70s, but I'm a lot younger than Jackie in the book. She's a teen, but I do remember snippets. And what struck me about the year 1979 is just it was kind of a cuspy year. We're on the cusp of 1980. And, all the changes that would come with the 80s, technology and more of the Me Too or Me First era. And I wanted to get that last gasp of, an outdoor life, an unconnected life. Growing up in California as a girl, I would go outside and see who was out there and play. And I didn't have a schedule. None of classes or anything like that. So Jackie and Willa in 1979 had this very free summer where nobody's paying attention. And I love that beautiful freedom. And I do think things changed in the 80s a bit, at least, in my world. And then 1999 is another year that feels like the end of something. We're on the precipice of Y2K, and we were all kind of nervous about that. And, big changes were coming. So it's 20 years difference. And we see who Jackie was in 1979 and who she was in 1999 and how the world maybe has moved on from the world of the sandcastle. But it stays the same. The magic there is kind of timeless. And I really wanted to create that, like the sense of this place where time had stood still in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I think you did it very successfully. When I read a description that you wrote that you kind of wanted to go for like this sepia toned feel of the book. And that is actually like, before I even read that, I was like, this book is like sepia toned. Like that's like I like you see like the film strip of this book and like the lighting, if this is the movie of this book to me is like golden light and like that late afternoon glow, that magic hour, that golden hour kind of thing. Like, it was a very relaxing book to read.
Oh, good.
Like, even though there's so much, like, there's a lot of, like, it's not to say, like, there's a lot of serious stuff that happens in this book. There's a lot of real issues and a lot of real problems. But it also felt like, I felt very, like, comforted as I was reading it. I was like, oh, this is, like, a really nice, like, meditative kind of book, even as you go deep and really explore these things. It's the kind of book that like Summer invites these deep discussions and like these contemplations about where we are in our lives. And I'm curious, Summer for you, like clearly Summer figures heavily in all three of your books. Is there something about this season that to you kind of really opens you up as an artist? Does it inspire you in a way that makes you kind of dig deep like this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm fascinated by Summer, and I didn't set out to be a summer writer, whatever that is, but I think because my birthday is August 31st.
Nice. Oh yeah.
So my birthday is at the end of summer. My birthday was always kind of Labor Day, and we were all coming back to school, and I just love that feeling of the change that happens in summer. I remember growing up how people would change over a summer, our friends. They come back to school totally different people. So to me, summer is that time of change and freedom. And I love that you say this book is, comforting or relaxing, because I think when I was writing it, I put into it all the things I was longing for, travel, because I wasn't traveling. It was kind of during the lockdown when I was writing a lot of this. And I wanted to capture a very beautiful place. Again, some intense things go down there, but that's the number one thing I've heard from readers. Just in the few days since it's been out is it real? Is this place real? Can I go there? And that makes me so happy, because I feel like, okay, I kind of did my job right in painting the location, and that's spending a summer in this place. If you want to go there, that's a good sign.
Man, oh geez, I should have put together a list. I was gonna say, like, this place does kind of exist. Like, it does. There's some like cool like songwriting retreats and things like that people can. I know Dar Williams runs a songwriting retreat that I don't know if you know her.
Ooh, I know, but I should.
She's like an amazing female singer-songwriter. She's like kind of a lesser known, like Liz Phair, Ani DeFranco kind of like. I would say she's a little more chill but just a little more. But like she runs one, and like there's cool like music like camp places.
Right.
Well, actually, Guitar Center constantly like kind of puts out stuff for people about like music retreats and things like that. If anyone's interested, like go check out Center's website.
I love that.
I'm sure they have stuff. Like I've found stuff through them in the past.
You probably have to be pretty good to get in, or can I just like do it as a fantasy camp? Or
some of them you don't. Some of them are just like come as you are, you know, like even if you just kind of, I've gone to things where like I'm the only professional musician in the place, and I've gone to some where everybody is, you know, crazy. But
well, that's the same thing with writing retreats too, and I love that. And sometimes that mix is what really makes it special and makes it work. And you know, we need that, especially in 2021. You know, a beautiful place to go and just think about creating something, and especially if your phone doesn't work there, that's ideal, right?
That's ideal. That's amazing. Yeah. Let's talk for a little bit about creating the sandcastle.
Okay.
Obviously, you're a California gal.
Yeah.
You are, you know, inspired by the Pacific Northwest. Let's talk a little bit about setting, about what it is about the Pacific Northwest, because it's such a special place. I mean, it's such a beautiful place. And then on top of that, how you went about actually like constructing this mythical, you know, Elysium kind of place. What was that process like for you?
I grew up in California. I'm in Portland now, and I love Portland and Oregon. And I will write a book set in Oregon at some point, I promise. But this, the Lady Sunshine is set in far northern California. So north of Napa, almost at the Oregon border, and it's in Humboldt County. So it's this really rugged, gorgeous, isolated place. And I've been there, spent a lot of time there, a lot of summers there, and wanted to capture that natural beauty because the property, this house that Jackie inherits, includes waterfalls and a swing that looks out over the ocean and creeks, and it's just gorgeous. So as far as the studio and the cabins and all that, what I did is I kind of took the idea of the record plant, which was Fleetwood Mac's studio in Marin. But a lot more, that was more urban. But it was sort of a mecca for artists of, you know, famous and not. And so I took that and kind of transplanted it into a rural setting. And what I did is, for all my books, I take graph paper and I draw wherever the town is or the lake, you know, even if it's just for me. I want to know, like, okay, this is how you get from point A to point B. This is how Jackie and Willa at 17 bike from, you know, their cabins down to the beach under the storm drain, you know, and I have to map it out and see what it looks like. And again, it's a little bit of wish fulfillment, you know. It's the idea of summer camp for adults. Adults and people of all ages, because when she goes in 1979, one of the most striking things, she's coming from a very safe, quiet life with her dad in Nob Hill, where she's kind of rich in San Francisco. She goes to this place where adults and children and teens just mix. They're all together. There are no rules really. So it's just a place I would love to visit. Yeah. It's so great. So then so it sounds like maybe you're a bit of a visual person in some ways, even though you're an author and your, you know, words are your forte and words are your medium of choice. But do you think visually about the rest of the book as well? So like, are you an outliner? Do you map out the book first, especially with a dual timeline, which this has? Do you, you know, write 1979 first and then write 1999 and kind of mix them? What's your process like? Yeah, well, I need to know what's going to happen. And in all of my books, there's a secret or multiple secrets at the heart of it. So I do need to know what that secret is and kind of what the when it's going to be revealed and what the resolution is and why people are keeping the secret. I know that. So I'm an outliner in that sense. But a lot of times, like if you came over to my house when I was working, A lot of times working for a writer, at least for me, is me lying in my hammock in the backyard with my eyes closed. Like,
I love it.
and I've heard other writers say that, like, it's boring to look at, you're basically, maybe you're sitting on a sofa staring out into space, daydreaming. But for me, that is when the story starts to feel real, when I can picture it in my head and I can see the waterfall and I can see Jackie and Willa and her uncle and all that happens there. And, until that point, I can write 10,000 words, but it doesn't feel real if I can't see it.
Yep.
And then translating that into the prose is the trick, and the thing that's the most grueling, and words are very important. I was an English major in college, so that part of it is extremely important to me. But yes, to answer your question, yes, I'm visual. I use graph paper and I stare into space.
I love it. No, nobody ever, I mean, it's true though. Like part of it is staring into space. Part of it is just sitting there. It's funny. You talk about people say it looks boring. I've had that experience in both worlds. I mean, in both the music world and the writing world, most of it is just you sitting there by yourself trying to make something happen. And like every now and then, you get that Elizabeth Gilbert, the big magic thing where it just kind of flows out of you. But most of it is very mundane, and it's very it's very boring. Not a lot happens
for everyone else. Like, it's so entertaining for me. And
your brain.
I'll go for a long walk or a kayak, and that's when I get ideas.
I love that. It sounds like you really embraced the idea of easing your way into it, which is, to me, like I'm a super type A person, and I'm somebody who kind of forces it. Like if it's not working, I sort of I'm just like, oh, I'll just work harder. And then maybe it'll work out. Is that how you've always been? Did you embrace
it's a combination?
That?
Yeah, I'm not a type A too. I absolutely am. The editor will tell you that. And I stress out a lot. I like to know what's going to happen, because it's a very daunting and frightening thing to commit to writing a book. And to just day after day, even the days when it's not going well and you're not feeling it and you don't know what's going to happen with it, if anyone else will ever read it, you have to still put in the hours. So that's the grind part of it. And you can't avoid that. It's hard. Like, people go to great lengths to try to avoid that and to find out the secret of finishing a manuscript. And you have to put in the hours, whether it's going well in your head or not. And it's funny, sometimes the things that you write on the days when you think it's not going well, they're great. Maybe they're just fine, or maybe they're great. And sometimes the stuff you think is so great and you're feeling really inspired is actually, you look at it later and you're like, not so much. So putting in the hours is crucial, but you do have to leave room for that magic to happen and to to feel that the story is real. Because for me, if I don't feel the story is real, I'm not going to convince anyone else that it's real. And that it's a mashup of whatever works. That's my process. I don't have any great formula, but I'm starting to learn kind of what works for me. And it's a combination of those things.
That's great. Oh, I love that. I love to hear about people's processes and things like that. Moving on just a little bit to a few other things. Let's talk about some of the characters and how you develop these people. I'm interested in the translation from the Wilco album, the Woody Guthrie inspiration, to putting it on the page. And I want to hear a little more about that process of what took you from the original inspiration and this idea of like, these are my characters, and this is what's going to happen to them. Especially Jackie and Willa. At what point in the process do you what's kind of like your entry point beyond that original inspiration? Is it then you go, okay, I have to set this in Northern California, and this is who's going to populate the story? Or do you think, what if there was this girl, and like you build the story around Jackie? Tell me a little bit about how you built the story after that first initial.
Sure. Yeah, and those you nailed those two magic words. What if? To me, that's the heart of a good novel. What if? Yeah. And you have to let yourself go there. So Jackie as a character is so different from me. In some of my other book, in my both other books, the heroine, the main character is maybe an introvert who's a bit quieter. Jackie's not like that. You know, she's fiery as a teen, and she is considered promiscuous, and her dad doesn't know how to handle her, but she sure is a lot of fun, and she's the most loyal friend ever. She goes to great lengths, in fact, to right perceived wrongs. Kind of what she does as a teen. You know, she really wants to make things right for her friends. And then Willa kind of came out of the opposite of that. And Willa was maybe kind of born from the environment. You know, she kind of is a creature of the sandcastle. She doesn't own a TV. You know, Jackie is obsessed with Saturday Night Live and Mr. Bill and doing impressions and Gilda Radner and all this stuff. And Willa doesn't know about any of this. You know, she's grown up in a beautiful, unusual environment with no traditional schooling and really has spent time among adults and in nature. And she surfs, wakes up every morning early to go surf in her wetsuit because it is cold there. If you've ever been there, you know that you're surfing with the wetsuit. So they're opposites. And I really thought that it just felt like they would maybe be nervous around each other at first. They are. They think they're going to hate each other. But then that friendship is so meaningful to both of them and so life-changing to both of them. That's where that came from. Again, probably a bit of wish fulfillment. You know, I'm very close to my sister, but I don't know that I have a lifelong best friend like that. Maybe that's why I'm drawn to that theme in my book. You know, life takes you in all kinds of directions, and we do lose friendships, even with our Facebook friends. You know, it's very easy to lose those connections as grown women, and I do like to explore that in the books. And then you might have had another question, and now I'm forgetting what it was, but.
Well, you know what? Let's stay on character for a little bit because you know, then you have. So we don't ever give spoilers, but you know, Graham is such an interesting character throughout the book. He's a really, really interesting, complex character. Everybody's really interesting and complex. Can you talk a little bit about who or what inspired you in writing Graham? So
Graham is Jackie's uncle, Willa's father, and he's the leader of the sandcastle. He's the king, really, right, of the castle. And everyone's drawn to him, and he comes off as someone who's very casual and accepting, but he has his faults and his rules, and he definitely likes people to bow to him a little bit. And Jackie very quickly starts to worship Graham. I would say, as far as inspiration, he's kind of a hybrid of, you know, gifted, brilliant, but flawed singer-songwriters of the 60s, 70s, a bit of, oh goodness, maybe a little Jackson Browne and James Taylor in there, Crosby. But he's a big man, and he's kind of looks like a lion. You know, he's got all this hair and kind of sits in the sun like a lion in repose. And we see that, you know, with Jackie, we kind of fall in love with Graham. She is so thrilled by how he makes her feel. Graham makes her feel important and accepted, but he's an extremely flawed person. And so we start to see his flaws along with Jackie.
Let me tell you, everyone in the music industry is a flawed person. I mean, actually, some of us are normal. But it's really interesting where most of the time, like I've played with a lot of different people, and people are either completely normal or they're completely insane. And there's there's almost no, like, it's either all an act and they're totally normal and they're way more normal than you would ever think. And they like come off stage and they like take off the outfit and like put it away and turn into like this person who's like wearing khakis and has their kids being like, you're super boring. Or they're like completely off the reservation in a way that is like, they're so beyond that. Like, you're not even on the same planet.
That's so interesting. I mean, there are a lot of masks. I think Graham is very good at that. Like he's, not to give away spoilers, but he's invited to this big show down in San Francisco. It's south of where they live. And it's a huge deal for him because he's a has-been. I mean, there's no other real way to put it. It's a cruel sounding thing, but you know, and he's creating art and still he's very generous with other musicians, but in his heart, he's lost it. And that hurts him very deeply, but he pretends that it does not hurt him. And I think I probably put a lot of my anxieties as a writer being published into that. I mean, I'm sure I did. It's probably pretty obvious. Writing a novel is great therapy. So I think Graham is the embodiment of that fear of, we love the art, we love what we're creating, but we do still care. We want to connect with other people. We want other people to at least, in the case of the songwriter, at least hear it. Yeah. So yeah, he's an interesting one, and he was a lot of fun to create.
That's awesome. I want to do a question from the audience. From Anissa says, your writing is very lyrical to me. Have you written poetry before? So you have so obviously, for those of you who missed, Amy was talking about how she did write the songs in the book, which is very cool. But did you have any prior experience with poetry or any kind of short form stuff?
I've dabbled in poetry. I'm not a poet, but that's a huge compliment. And that's a word that's come up a lot with this one, which I love. I do think about the sound of the words. I read everything aloud multiple times, and I go for a certain cadence and rhythm. Yeah. And so hopefully that comes across, but I wouldn't call myself a poet. Maybe someday, just like this with songwriting, it's something that is attractive to me.
Any plans to put out any of the songs that you?
No.
Come on.
No, I have them all, written down, and then I think there are 12 or 13 at this point. And I have them recorded into my phone, and I'd like to save those for myself, but nobody's hearing those. If I got my daughter to sing them, maybe, because she's a great voice, but at this point I will say no.
Nice. I swear I'm going to do that one day. I'm going to do an album and a book that go together somehow. I need to figure out how I'm going to do it. I don't know how.
I had a lot of fun creating the playlists for the book.
Yeah. Yes. So, Can people check those out on Spotify? Or
I'll send you a link too. So I haven't done a great job of publicizing those actually, but there's a Spotify playlist in the book, in the back of the print copy of the book that's out now, and the ebook, with a side A that's Jackie. Yep. Again, she likes.
Oh, cool! I love that.
I had to do that because they're so different. It would have been a very jarring playlist otherwise. So side A is Jackie, and then side B is Willa, and it's a bit softer and folky, and that is on Spotify and on my website. And then I also did a countdown leading up to the publication where I did my top 20 songs of the 70s.
Oh,
another playlist.
Love that. What's
very unscientific and random, but a lot of fun.
I love that. Everyone, you got to go check out the playlist. Listen to them. Do you listen to music when you write?
Sometimes. I find it hard to listen to anything with words.
Me too.
Maybe for that daydreaming part, but not for the actual typing out scenes. I can't listen to other words during that.
I actually can hardly listen to music while I write. I need silence. It's a weird thing because as a musician, I'm constantly listening to music. I'm constantly hearing things, but I've sort of killed music for myself. I can't I now can't listen to music unless it's something that I've listened to for my entire life. Right. Without then writing a song on top of that song. I
can see that.
It's a weird thing.
It's very personal. I mean, some people love to write, and I know authors who created their playlist that they used while they were drafting, and I could never work while listening to that, but it's very personal.
Yeah, I can't either. Oh, I love that. Amy, let's do just a couple little lightning round before we say goodbye.
Oh gosh, okay, I'm ready.
What's one of the best books you've ever read in your life that stays with you? What's a book you can never stop thinking about?
Oh, well, this is on my mind right now because it's almost 4th of July, but Independence Day by Richard Ford, which won the Pulitzer back in the 80s. I reread that book a lot. Do I have to say just one? Also, Who Will Run the Frog Hospital by Lori Moore. Love that. Have you read it? It's a novella, actually. And
I haven't, but I will. What a title.
It's wonderful. I love coming of age, and I love road trips.
Yeah.
So I think Richard Ford is kind of my road trip. It satisfies that craving. Yep. And then I think those two are the ones I recommend the most.
Nice. I love that. If you weren't a writer, what would you be doing?
I'd still be a reporter. So I was a journalist and for a long, long time, and I love that. And even now, I sometimes get that itch to get out there and report. And I love interviewing people. It's weird to be on the other side of it. I'm actually really comfortable asking people questions, and I love getting people to open up.
Did you lose Amy?
Oh, did you lose me?
Oh, here we go. I lost you, I think, for a second, but everybody
No.
else might have still had you. So don't.
Okay, good. Oh yeah, am I frozen?
No,
Oh,
you're good.
okay.
You're good.
So journalism, which I did for 20 years, before
Awesome.
turning to fiction, I'd still be doing that.
Yeah, great. I love it. What's the best writing advice you've ever been given, and what's the worst writing advice you've ever been given?
Okay. It's easier to come up with the worst. I think the worst is write what you know. I hate that. Not for me. Maybe it's grounded in a feeling that or something you've always felt, but I don't think you have to stick to that necessarily. And then the best is Anne Lamott's. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this show, but anyway, she has an essay.
You're allowed to swear. We're online.
Okay, well, it's called In Praise of Shitty Drafts.
Yep.
And it's like that, just the idea that you need to first just get it down, get the story down, tell yourself the story, and go from there.
Awesome. What are you working on right now? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I'll tell you a bit. I'm working on my 4th novel for Graydon House, my publisher, and it's about a secret. I can't talk about it too. It's of course it's about a woman who had an extremely unusual upbringing, very unusual, and is coming to terms with that. I'm super excited about it. And that's all I can say really right now. I have a lot of work to do, but I love it.
If you could go back to any summer of your life, which one would you pick and watch yourself? Which one would you pick and why?
Oh, this is going to be a little sappy, but maybe like when I was 12 or 13, because my dad died when I was 20, and I would love to just go back to those. Thank you, to those summers with my dad, like at Pinecrest Lake, and maybe go on the water and just see myself hanging out with him and see him. So yeah, early teens, maybe 12 or 13.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds nice.
I spent a lot of time at Pinecrest Lake, and it's small, but that was a little bit of the basis for the lake in the summer list.
Oh yeah. Cool. I mean, that's easy to see that connection. Yes, and please, folks, pick up Summer Hours and the Summer List if you haven't, along with Lady Sunshine, of course.
The Lake.
Yes. Do you have an independent bookstore you want to give a shout out to, Amy?
Oh, Broadway Books in Portland. I love them. They're amazing. A lot of people know Broadway because they had Michelle Obama here. They're legendary. And I just had my launch event there this week. And Powell's too in Portland, but also everyone knows Powell's, which is legendary. We're blessed here in Portland.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. And folks, please follow Amy on socials. It's Amy Mason Doan. Am I saying your last name correctly?
But I like
it. Oh my gosh, no.
It's okay. It's Doan. It's a really unusual name. Yeah. So everyone does that, believe me.
I'm so sorry. I should have asked that. That's like a terrible reporter thing. I should have asked that right off the bat. But Amy Mason Doan, wow. Here I have been saying it Doan this whole time. I'm sorry about that, Amy. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on Lady Sunshine. One last question before we go. What do you hope that readers get out of this book and out of your work in general?
Yeah, I think this is true of all my books because they're all about sort of unfinished business and reconnecting with ourselves. I hope that they come to that last page and feel like it's okay to take a risk and try to find something we thought we lost, that joy is still out there for us.
It's so beautiful. And Lady Sunshine is a beautiful book. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. And thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you. We'll see you guys all next week on A Mighty Places Lit Chick. And until then, happy 4th of July, everyone. Go pick up a great book like Lady Sunshine and keep reading. Thank you for being with us, Amy.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.